Welcome to this month's Fit for Colorado Talk to the Doc chat. I'm CBS4 anchor and health reporter Kathy Walsh. For the next half hour, we'll be chatting about fitness and health issues here on CBS4Denver.com. Throughout this chat, we encourage you to ask questions by simply typing them in the chat window at right, and we will do our best to answer those questions. In today's chat, we're going to discuss sleep and sleep disorders. According to the National Sleep Foundation, nearly 6 of 10 men and women, 126 million Americans have some trouble sleeping a few nights a week. A third of us suffer from chronic insomnia. Up to 1 in 5 has sleep apnea, a serious sleep disorder. Joining me today is Dr. Robert Ballard of Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center. He specializes in sleep disorders. And also Dr. Jim Hill, co-founder of America on the Move and director of the Center for Human Nutrition, UC Denver. All right, Dr. Ballard, we all know sleep is essential. Why?
Well, that's kind of the big issue, because if we could do without sleep, just think how much more we could get out of our lives every day. But we know that it plays an important role in terms of not only allowing our body to restore itself and to heal itself and to keep itself capable of functioning, but it also plays an important role in terms of keeping our mind well organized and functioning correctly. And we know that if people go without sleep for any sustained period of time, all those things start to break down.
So how much sleep is enough? How much do you need?
You know, it appears that there's a lot of variability. Some people can get by with much less sleep, and some people require quite a bit more. So every individual kind of has to make that assessment. As an average rule, we think that probably the old-fashioned rules of 8 hours of sleep would be ideal, are probably still accurate for the general population. In truth, though, some people can get by with less than 6 hours, but some people require up to 10 hours of sleep per night. And whatever it takes to make you feel good and to make you have high quality of life and to be productive during the daytime, that's basically your normal amount of sleep.
Sure. And what happens if you don't get enough sleep?
Well, typically you note very quickly that you don't function as well. And so cognitive function is what we refer to it as, which is kind of the ability to assimilate information and make decisions based upon that. It starts to deteriorate pretty quickly. And so consequently people find that they're becoming less productive in their daily activities as opposed to maintaining productivity. And so that's the sort of thing that I would encourage people to keep a close eye out for, is how well am I doing? Am I dissatisfied with my performance? And what are the things that I can do to improve my performance? And perhaps something as simple as getting another hour or two of sleep each night might help to achieve that.
And Dr. Hill, what happens to you physically?
Well, you know, Kathy, we've talked before about one of the things I'm concerned about. People are gaining weight, 1 to 2 pounds a year. You know, what's interesting is now it looks like sleep deprivation may be contributing to that. And so as Bob said, if you're not functioning well, you're going around sleep deprived, you're not functioning well, you're not regulating your body weight well. So
let's look at this real quickly. Less sleep, more likely to become obese. And then there's another one that we put up there. Obese, more likely to sleep less.
So it's interesting. So not getting enough sleep both causes obesity, and then you have sleep consequences as a consequence of obesity. So if there are these people, Bob, walking around that are sleep deprived, it means that a lot of people aren't functioning as well as they could be functioning if they got more sleep.
Absolutely. And basically there's no shortage of people that actually come in to seek evaluation and help with those sorts of problems. And that's kind of what we do in sleep medicine now.
Yeah.
So one of the issues is, why are people sleep deprived? And I guess you deal with that a lot, is that a lot of us would like to get more sleep, and yet it's the stress and the busyness of life that's causing us not to.
Let's talk about the stress. I looked at this morning, first thing, opened the paper. Bad getting worse. The economy, number one, I would think, on people's minds right now. Is that causing people to lose sleep?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and whether or not people actually came in initially because the economy was causing their problems, when they've come in now, more recently, it's clearly contributing to worsening of symptoms.
So it's almost like modern life is causing this problem.
Absolutely.
In many ways.
You know, and in truth, when we look at the condition called insomnia, which is typically difficulty initiating and maintaining sleep or not getting sufficient sleep, it really does appear to be sort of a Western society phenomenon. And it kind of reflects our busy lives, the fact that we actually have increasing work weeks as opposed to decreasing work weeks, and the fact that there are so many things that kind of distract us around the clock. For instance, access to the internet, or for instance cable television. So there's so many things that are competing for our daytime hours that it really encroaches into our normal sleep time.
Yeah. One of the things about insomnia that I read is that more women and the elderly seem to suffer from it. Why?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting because we've traditionally thought that women do suffer more from insomnia. Some studies that have been done recently have kind of looked at sleep patterns in women versus men and have actually found that they're closer than we initially thought, but that women actually perceive sleep somewhat differently from men, and it might be kind of a gender-specific difference in perception, might be the way that we're thinking about it now. Unfortunately, though, as we get older, our sleep becomes less organized. And part of that might be that there's a breakdown in these body clocks that we call circadian clocks, which part of their role is to determine when we're sleepy and when we're alert. And as we get older, we think those become less robust. And so consequently, that allows our sleep to become less consolidated and makes older people more prone to be awake at night and more prone to be sleepy during the daytime.
But you know what? On the other end, what we see is a relationship between lack of sleep and obesity in kids. Are you beginning to see children who have sleep problems?
Oh, absolutely. You know, and it's kind of interesting because we sort of generally have accepted in the pediatric population more that these are just, you know, within the normal range. Some kids are good sleepers, some kids are poor sleepers, and it all comes together in the end. But, you know, more recent data suggested that, you know, a lot of adults who have problems with sleep, these started back when they were infants. And they're basically patterns of behavior that have, you know, maybe had onset as early as infancy.
Really? So what are parents supposed to do to prevent that when their children become adults?
Well, I think that they're supposed to maybe take a more active role in terms of monitoring their children and in terms of getting help if they think that their children need help. You know, a great example of what's happened in the last few years has been the recognition that this condition called sleep apnea, which we traditionally recognized in overweight adults as being a common problem, actually was fairly common in children. And it turns out that it's associated with all sorts of behavioral manifestations, poor performance in school, problems interacting with peers, the diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. All of those types of behavior problems seem to be promoted by having undiagnosed sleep apnea.
Let's look at sleep apnea here. I know I have a graphic that we can put up so we can talk about it for people who don't quite understand what it is. Can we see that one? Alrighty, this one's coming up here and I can tell you about it a little bit. Just, if you don't know what sleep apnea is, here are the symptoms. Heavy snoring, and also my understanding is that breathing stops periodically?
Right. The snoring is actually caused by having a small airway. And the airway is actually called the pharynx, and it's right here between the soft palate and the base of the tongue. So it's very, very short. But if it gets really narrow during sleep, air has a hard time getting through there. And when it has a hard time getting through there, it starts making the soft tissue vibrate, and that's what makes the snoring noise. But if it closes all the way down, you can't get air through at all. And so you'll stop breathing and you'll stop snoring.
And there are a lot of health issues associated with that. Jim, let's take a look at those, if we can put those up, please. I know that they say with sleep apnea you can have high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, heart failure. I mean, it's hard to believe that because you're not sleeping right, you can have heart failure. Memory problems, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Weight gain, that is a big one, Jim.
Well, if you look at people that are really obese, most of them do have some aspect of sleep apnea, and it's one of the good reasons to lose weight because it's one of the things that resolves fairly early on. So if you're very overweight, even losing a little bit of weight oftentimes will help with your sleep problems.
So what would you say, maybe 10% of your...
Yeah, 10% of your weight has been shown in a lot of studies to help a lot of things, one of which is sleep apnea. It also helps the other comorbidities, but it's a good reason to lose a little bit of weight. You don't have to lose 50 pounds to get an impact. Even 10% can have a big effect.
Yeah, let's look at some of those other health issues. Headaches, I understand as well, and daytime sleepiness. And I think just when you don't get enough sleep, whether you have sleep apnea or not, sometimes you can make it through the day with this headache, and you think, why do I have this headache? It almost feels like a hangover because you didn't sleep well.
And women are actually more likely when they have sleep apnea to note that headache than men are. Men are maybe more likely to talk about the sleepiness, and women are more likely to talk about fatigue. So there's some gender-specific differences in the symptoms that people with sleep apnea note as well.
Bob, when you get people to come in, how do you evaluate whether they have sleep problems or not?
Well, I'm sort of fortunate because I run a sleep disorders program, and people typically present because they want their sleep problems evaluated. And so then we actually start to kind of tease as to what the actual inciting events are. a lot of patients present because they have a primary symptom of insomnia, and some people present because they're excessively sleepy during the daytime, and a lot of people have both symptoms, actually. They don't sleep very well at night, but they're very sleepy during the daytime. So we immediately start searching for what are potential causes of these problems. For instance, can they have problems with stress? You know, very common contributor in Western society. Are they obese? Are they overweight? Does that seem to be playing a role? Do they have trouble breathing through their nose at night? Chronic rhinitis and sinusitis is a big sleep disruptor, and it predisposes people to have sleep-disordered breathing. Do they have those funny symptoms that you might have seen some of the television ads for, like it's called restless leg syndrome?
Right.
These kind of creepy, crawly, restless feelings in their legs.
Which is horrible for people who suffer from it.
Oh, I've seen it absolutely ruin people's lives before.
That's bad.
Oh, I've heard of people who committed suicide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of it. It's that bad.
Absolutely. In the traditional medical literature, they actually have lithographs of people jumping into rivers and jumping off cliffs to alleviate themselves from these totally unavoidable, painful symptoms that they had.
Jim, can exercise help?
Yeah, I think exercise can help. I think that a lot of studies show that exercise improves the quality of sleep, so it can help directly. It also helps through managing your weight. So, diet and exercise are two good things that you can do here.
Do you have to decide what time of day, though, you exercise? I mean, you have to make sure you're not exercising too late in the evening?
Well, for me, it's whenever you will exercise. So try it. And if you exercise in the evening and that you have trouble going to sleep, exercise earlier in the day. So this is a little bit of trial and error, but when it comes to exercise, I like to call it physical activity. Exercise sounds like not fun. Physical activity sounds like fun. Do some physical activity, figure it out. So if you're one of those people who say, boy, when I exercise late in the day, I can't sleep, don't exercise late in the day. Try to find a way to exercise in the morning.
And here are some other ways to improve sleep. No television or computer 1 hour before bed.
Right.
I've heard that a lot. Keep the bedroom dark and at a comfortable temperature. That's important. And white noise. Can you explain that, please, Dr. Berlick?
Yeah, a lot of people actually arouse and awaken in response to what we call external noises. But external noises can be anything such as your heating or your air conditioning system coming on, or your dog scratching at the door, or somebody driving down the street outside of your house. So we can use things like white noise to actually cover those types of noises in a way that's non-distracting to the patient.
So what is that, a fan? You run a fan
Probably
at night?
most people use fans to do that with, but you can actually go to different stores and you can buy devices which create different types of white noises. Anything from the waves crashing on the shore to jungle music, or the birds.
Whatever works for you,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Where I grew up in this country, crickets were always something that we heard during the night,
right.
and it's actually a great source of white noise.
So the other aspect of the problem here is people that don't have a problem with physiology. They have a problem with time. They're working 2 jobs, they have to be up late, they have to get up early. How can we help people like that? It's time management more than anything else.
Well, I always really try to make the case of how are you going to be maximally productive and get the most out of your time so that you can enjoy life. And I try to make the case to people that even though you think that you need to work 14 hours a day and sleep only 4 to 5 hours a night, in truth it encroaches upon your efficiency and your ability to be productive with that time. So I just encourage people to try to make more time to get more sleep and see if it doesn't actually impact upon their daytime productivity in a real positive way, so that they can actually accomplish more as opposed to less.
And I would go further and say there are a lot of people out there that are trying to lose weight or manage their weight. I think getting enough sleep is one of the best things you can do for your weight. So if you can, and if you're trying to manage your weight, look toward getting a little bit more sleep.
Yeah, there's another tool to help you out.
There's another tool to help.
Absolutely.
All right, we've got a couple of questions, and I knew these were going to come up because I have these questions for you as well. Okay, this first one from William. A lot of people take sleep aids of some kind all the time. How do you know what's safe? And then the next question is part of William's as well. Is a drug called trazodone okay?
Okay, well, a drug called trazodone is actually an antidepressant medication that's been used for the last 30 years or so. And it actually was the most commonly prescribed sleep medication of the 1990s. And that is because it makes about 50% of all people who take it feel somewhat sleepy and somewhat groggy. So it actually was used widely for that purpose. Studies have suggested that it's primarily helpful in people who also have a little bit of depression with their sleep problem. So insomnia by itself, like say for instance we're stressed because we have a big work project coming up, maybe doesn't respond as well to trazodone, but if we have a little bit of a mood disorder and a